This is the tutorial for the MonoPrice MP10 3D printer. First step, go over to the screen, turn it on, power button's over there. Turn it on by hitting the preheat manual. Make sure the bed and nozzle are preheated by hitting start. That will preheat both to whatever the allotted time is, whatever the allotted temperature is there. Next, you're going to want to make sure that there is filament inside of the machine. Right now, there is not, or it's not feeded through, because there is a bit of gray filament down there. So now we're going to have to go back to this, hit here, and over here is the extruder. You want to hit down on that, and you're going to see the filament come out of the nozzle there. That is coming out. You're just going to want to make sure it's all coming out good. Let go and check the gray bar is gone now. So put the new red bar in and push it in a little bit. Go back to here, extrude it some more, make sure the filament's actually coming out. I'll go back again. It's kind of just a trial and error process. So once you feel it kind of hit the flywheels there, just let it go again, and you should see the wheel start to move in a moment after it feeds through some more. If it doesn't feed through, just keep pushing through, and eventually it'll snag, and then eventually it'll finish extruding there. See, it's still slightly extruding. Just hold down on that button. Keep feeding through. You might have to push this in as well to feed through, just because it has a little clamping mechanism. So I'll be back when the feeding is commenced. All right, now that the filament has actually decided to be red and has come out of the machine, if you continue to hold the button, more filament comes out. Just make sure there's no gray stuck in there. And the red filament should keep moving gradually as it goes through. Make sure to clear the filament off. Make sure it's not hot. You don't burn your fingers. And then after that, make sure to hit the back button. Make sure that the board's cleaned off. There's nothing on the board. If there is something on the board, get a piece of paper or plastic tool, something like that, to scrape it all off. There are a little bit of scratch marks, but that's all right. That's not going to affect the quality of your build. And then once you have the part already, after doing the on-shape assignment and after importing it onto a USB, such as this one, but it's going to have a little micro SD card in it, because that's what this machine requires down there. You're going to want to do move, and then you're going to want to hit tune, and then hit auto leveling. So now the printer is going to auto level itself, so you don't have to. Don't worry about any sound it's going to make. It's just testing the motors and making sure everything works right. Here, make sure that all four corners of the build plate are all good and there's nothing blocking it, especially up top, because you don't want it to hit anything and then all of a sudden just stop working. Make sure that the filament can feed nicely. Make sure there's a gap around it. Make sure it's on the actual arm. Make sure everything's filling good. And now it's just going to finish up auto leveling. All right, after the auto leveling is complete and it's back in its original home X and Z axis, you're going to want to press the check mark and then hit the back, or you can hit the home, both work. So after designing your part in Onshape or whatever software, Fusion, whatever, then open up Cura Ultimaker and then make sure that it's open. Make sure you clear everything, accept everything. And then when it says add printer, go to other and then go down to MonoPrice MP10, not the MP10 mini, the MP10. Just hit add printer and then it should pop up with this. You can clear these two out, they don't really matter. And then after getting your part and whatnot, just click over here and then go to downloads, and then you should have the Onshape part over there, the STL that you downloaded from Onshape. If you have any questions about how to do that, look at the Prusa 3D printer videos and it'll tell you how to download the STL file. After that, you're gonna have to make sure that it is on generic PLA or whatever material is inside the machine at the time. And then if your part is like coming off the bed at all, make sure to hit support, and support will make sure that your part's not going to like warp down or it's not going to just fail completely, but it'll build support. It's annoying at times to take off, but I mean, as it says there, it just generates support to make sure it doesn't collapse. Adhesion, this is kind of useful, especially for the first couple layers. That's why I always say to do it around 40%, so that you have a good adhesion, and it won't warp up or it won't just turn into a bowl. Infill and layer height, you shouldn't really ever touch those. If you want it more like sturdy or whatever, then turn up to around 50 or. And then for the quality, you shouldn't really ever need to go into here. This is just if you're advanced and you want to make sure that your part will be structurally sound, like if you're making a robotics part or something like that, just to make sure that it's solid and it won't break just by itself. But if you're making the keychain, everything should be fine. So I've imported a part into the Cura machine software itself. So as you can see, it's fairly big compared to the build plate. So whenever you do this, you're going to want to make sure that you either scale it down, because right now it's at 10,000, so move it down to around 100 and just play around with it. So obviously that is just a little bit small, considering it's about 1 millimeter. So you're going to want to move it around to 500 and just keep kind of moving it up and up until you get to around a decent size. So you're going to do around, I'll just say 12,000, 1,200, sorry. 12,000 might actually be a little bit better. That's too big, never mind. 19. Let's do 1,800, just to test it. All right, so that's give or take good. But now, as you can see, it's kind of floating, and you don't want that. So you're going to want to hit this button, and then you're going to want to hit this. You're going to want to drag this down, and it's going to flip that way. You're going to want to flip it up, and then there you go. So now it's actually attached to the build plate. If it's attached, you'll see the red marks on the bottom there, and it'll work properly, and it'll print properly. So then you're going to have it there, and then everything's going to be good there. So give or take, just randomize whatever it is. If it looks good, it looks good. If it doesn't look good, then try and always do it. If there's a problem with it ever and you do mess it up, you can always hit reset, and then it'll change it back down to that size. But I'm just going to move it around back up to 1900, and then as you can see, it's already on the build plate itself. There you go. The commands for moving around the mouse and everything, hold down the middle mouse button just to move around the screen. The right mouse button is to kind of change views, and the left mouse button is to obviously click. After making sure it's the right size, making sure everything's good in this area, make sure supports are on, adhesion's on, then you're going to want to, making sure your machine is still MonoPrice MP10 and PLA, you're going to want to hit slice. Well, it'll take a second, and then you're going to want to hit preview. The preview is probably the coolest part. The preview gets the entire part just built in whatever way it's going to be built. So right now, it's going to show you that it's going to print all of the red parts first, and it's going to use all the yellow and the green as kind of an infill type process. So the red for like my initials, AG here, is going to just be built layer on top of each other, and it's not going to need to have these little infilled parts into it. So another thing you can do is you can hit the play button, and it'll show you what it's going to do for whatever part it's going to do. So drag it along here, and it'll show you it's going to print all of this there. You can also use this one to change the layers, so you can see it's going to be printing kind of a honeycomb type pattern, and then it's going to be printed from the bottom layer there. So it's going to be printed like that, and then just all the way up. So it's cool to see how your part's going to be made, and you can also see if there are any problems with it. So like if I made the circle over here too wide and it's going to cut outside, it's going to show me that there's going to be no part over there or no material, so it's not going to work as a keychain. So you can also use down here to change the dimensions of the way you see it. And then here is where you can rename it. So I usually rename it to just a bunch of random letters, but for you guys, I'd rename it to keychain and then your initials. So for me, it would be AG, and then it'll save there, and then make sure to hit save to file. You scroll down, then there it is. So here is one of the codes, or one of the SD cards, not the SD card, but you're gonna wanna have the one with the micro SD card in it, but this will work for the video. And then hit save. And now it'll say save to keychain, and then there you go. So now it's saved inside of here. And then you're gonna wanna take that, put it inside of the machine. After putting in your Onshape file into the micro SD card, insert the micro SD into the machine, make sure it clicks in, then hit print. You should have your print file there. After hitting the print file, it should then show you the temperature of the nozzle, the bed, as well as the speed. If you want to pause it, press pause, tune it, or make any adjustments to the Z leveling bed, do that, and then cancel the build product there. So make sure to always have it, have the nozzle temperature at around 210. If you look on the filament itself, it should say the nozzle temperature and the bed temperature. So that one says between 195 and 220. I usually go for around 110. And then the bed, it says from around 50 to 60. It's at 60 right now, which is okay. And then make sure to hit the speed down to 0.4 for the first couple of runs. As you can see here, sure the print speed is at 40% for the first couple of runs. And then after that, once the nozzle and the bed heat up to the proper temperature, then the extruder will start printing your part. All right, so now that the extruder, nozzle, and bed are all roughly around the temperature, then the printer is gonna start moving around, and then it should start to print out the part now.
There's not even a joke. I know, but like it's...
So there you go. If there are any faults or errors, make sure to cancel it. If it's digging into the bed, make sure to cancel the project. Just hit the cancel button, and there you go. That's the advanced guide for the MonoPrice MP10. Just Mr. B, TAs, anything if you guys need it. So some common issues that I had when I was printing with it is that the micro SD card was put in backwards or upside down. If it is done like that, you want to just make sure to take it out, put it back in again. If the problem continues to persist, that it says there's nothing in it, just turn on and off the machine or unplug it, both work. Or just try and reformat the SD card back on the computer. If that doesn't solve it, then try putting on another type of file. Make sure it's like an actual STL file from Onshape or anything like that, and then it should work. Another problem that happened a lot was the preheating stuff. It wouldn't do it. So if you hit nozzle, you can always just adjust it up there. Always hit stop. And then for the move, if you want to manually move this thing around just to try and get like under the build plate, Z up, that moves it up. Z down, also move it down. And then it's like a keyboard, just left, right, up. So the up and down actually move the build plate. The left and right move the nozzle itself. Tries to be fun like that. Extruder, if you ever have like material caught under there, never try and reach your hand under there. Always just move the Z always up. Doesn't really matter how high you do it, just always move it up. And then always use a pair of pliers or paper towel or something like that. If it's stuck on there, try and use a pair of pliers. But never try and reach in there with your hand, especially if it's on for a while. If you're gonna burn your hand, that's not fun. But if you ever need to get extrusion material out, like I said in the other video, just press down on the E. Usually it should work. Oh, the nozzle's actually not heated up. So you have to make sure the nozzle's heated up before you extrude the material, or else it won't come out. But another problem over here is that the material might not actually go through this thing the entire way. So it might just get caught over here. Push this in and try and jimmy the material in. If there's no material previously in the tube itself, then you should just be able to jimmy it in and eventually it'll slide right in. If there is material in it, you always have to just preheat the machine, go down on the extrusion button, and then just keep pushing through until you see the new color. Or if it's the same color, it doesn't really matter. Just push through until the wheels here have good or semi-good control over the plastic itself. Make sure this thing is free. If it's caught up against here, it's not going to spin, so it's not going to print. It's going to make just a lot of noises, and then it's going to snap off the plastic all the way back onto the thing. It's going to just become a jumbled mess, and then it's never going to work. Or it's going to be a while to put back together. I know, because it's happened before a couple of times. Like I said in the other video, make sure that the tracks itself are clear of any plastic. So if there's like plastic in the tracks just jammed in there like that, you also want to make sure to take it out. Make sure that all the bands and everything else work. Make sure to move the bed around. Just make sure the limit switches aren't set. If the limit switches are set, then the machine just will not print whatsoever. So if it's stuck down like that, there should be other limit switches down on the bed plate itself, as well as on the sides here. On the sides here, there's a limit switch down here to control it so that it doesn't hit the top or hit the bottom, and then there's a limit up here at the top. Never try and print anything the full height of this. It will work, it just has a very high likelihood of failing, and all that PLA and all that material, I mean, no one really should be able to even have any parts on here that are going to go that high And if they are, you should definitely try and make sure they clear it with you, Mr. B, first. But that's pretty much most of what I know of the machine. The head is also detachable because it has magnets. So if there is something wrong with it, you don't really have to always raise it up, just pick it off the thing. And then if the fans are caught or whatnot, if it's not getting enough cooling, then make sure that they're all free and loose. If there's dust on the thing, make sure to try and clear it off a little bit. If not, it's fine. But mostly just make sure that this nozzle is not covered by plastic like it is kind of right now. So you can always just take it off with pliers if it's cool like it is now. Just scrape it off. To put it back on, pretty simple. You have 2 little bolts there. Just place it on like that, and then make sure that it spins side to side all good. While it's in this neutral position where there's no real like work being done on it, you can move the machine around pretty much free will. Just try not to like spin it too hard or move the bed too hard. Just do slow, gentle movements. If you do anything fast or hard, then it has a possibility of either breaking the track itself and going off, or it has a possibility of damaging the limit switches, which are quite expensive. Plus this is a gift to us, so we don't really want to break it. As you can see on the bed, there's residue and stuff from old prints that I've done, as well as some other students have done, to take stuff off the bed, take parts and stuff off the bed. Make sure there are like these little kind of hand or thumb things there. Just make sure to pull it off like that all in one go. And then make sure to not bend it per se, but you can give it a little bit of like a warp to try and pop it off. If that doesn't work, use a plastic like kind of spackle smoothing device. I don't have one here at the moment, but one of those will work fine. And just to put it back on, again, just try and line it up with all the corners as best you can. Doesn't have to be exact, just try and do it as best you can. And then just try and always push it into the corners fully, because you want to make sure that the bed works as it's supposed to, as intended to, it heats properly, even distribution. If the bed is unlevel, there are these springs down here that are going to prevent it from going up or lower any higher. I would recommend not touching these ever, because you don't need to. And I've printed probably dozens of parts on this thing and haven't had to touch those since I built the machine itself. Make sure that all of the cables and everything are all connected fully. If they aren't connected, something could go wrong, the machine can go off, who knows. But make sure that the cord also up here is fully plugged in, and make sure that the cord down is good, because you don't want it to fall out mid print, and then all of a sudden you have a part that's halfway done and you've just wasted a ton of filament. But also make sure that whatever you set your part to on the micro SD card is the same as the part on the filament. So right now it's PLA PHA, so there's a temp there, as I said in the video as well. And make sure that everything is like free, like I said before. There's nothing hitting that, nothing on there. Make sure this is on. Make sure the actual arm bar here is on as well, because we don't want that to fall down the crack in the darkness there. This light down here usually means it's usually on, and it usually means that there's filament inside there. There's a sensor in here that'll tell you. If it's not in there and it's not on, that means that it's unraveled itself, but I think you'd probably be able to see that just by itself. Make sure these are clear. You shouldn't really have to like do any maintenance on this, except for maybe dusting it off every now and then, but besides that, that's pretty much all on the machine itself. On the software, there are other problems that could occur, but that's pretty much all in the machine itself. So. All right, this is a continuation on the advanced tutorial for the MonoPrice MP10 for Mr. B and any TAs in the future. So if the part is not properly working here, you're going to want to go inside of the part here. Make sure it's actually an STL. If it is an STL, here, I can put in a new project here. So this is the another keychain that I made in the past. I'd always try and put as much of the part as you can on the base plate itself, or else you won't have to do too much supports. That's fine. Mirroring and everything doesn't really do too much. Builder's plate doesn't really do too much either. MonoPrice. If this isn't MonoPrice MP10, just do add printer, and then other, and then just move down to MonoPrice MP10. Do it again. You can do it as many times as you like. It's not going to change anything. PLA, you can always change it in here. The only one we really have is PLA, just the generic Libya ABS, all that stuff, pylon, PETG, all that. And then for here, make sure that if a student part isn't printing well, or it's just warping or whatnot, make sure adhesion, support, and gradual infill are all on, and Actually, gradual infill doesn't matter, but just support and adhesion, that's all you really need, just to make sure it's actually on the base plate itself. Material, make sure the temperature and everything is set to the proper one. Infill, this is where you can change it, like the inside of it, how it's like created. Triangles are always the best. Infill 20%, always the best. Shell, none of this really matters. Quality, if you want to make it better, you can make the quality lower. So it'll take a lot more time, but it'll also take a lot more material, but it'll make it look nicer. It'll make it look more sound. So if you're making parts that actually matter about being like rigid and not breaking, then just do that. Build plate adhesion, you can always change it between a skirt, brim, raft, or nothing. I'd always recommend either a raft or a brim just to have it on there. Support everywhere, building touch plate. I mean, I'd recommend everywhere just so that the machine itself, or the software itself, can just decide. Because like for this one, I'm gonna need to have support here, 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 and here, as well as in here, just to make sure nothing collapses. Generate support, overhang angle, this doesn't really matter too much. If you see something that's like way over here, or up here or something like that, and it's not being supported, you can always change this to whatever, and then it'll support it. Just make sure, try and use your judgment, and if it's not working, then make it work. So right now I'm just gonna hit slice, and then it's gonna have all of that. So I'm gonna hit preview, off in the corner here, and then here we go. So this is all of the parts and everywhere. I should have support on it. I'm not sure why it's not working as support, but it's gonna show you how it's gonna be built up. Triangle, it's gonna be hollow in the center, it's gonna be all the way to the top. So really just make sure that you have MonoPrice, PLA, and make sure that these are set to recommended, and then support and adhesion. If you have any questions, you can always consult the actual manual itself. It's always by the printer. It's never going to change. And then if you want to save it to just the computer, if you don't have the SD card, you can always just do save to file and then rename it over there if you need to. Always try and use your best judgment. If you can't change it to inches, or if I can't change it and I don't make another video, then millimeters, just use a conversion thing on Google. It works just as fine.